Hello, my name is Erin Parks, and I'm with Oklahoma Family Network. I'm the Northeast Family Support Partner, and I am here today to do a Care Notebook training. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. All righty, let's see. Share my screen with everybody. And all righty, everybody should see my screen. All righty, the first thing I'm going to talk to you today is about the why. A cute notebook, it is actually something that is very easy. It's common sense, but as we all know, when we are going through a crisis, it is hard to get all of our stuff together, and we think we're going to remember things that maybe we're not going to that we don't remember. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how a care notebook, it's an organizational tool that keeps track of that important healthcare and school information. It just makes it easier to find information. And I'm going to tell you the different ways that I recommend using a care notebook. But again, I want to stress that every care notebook is a little bit different. You are going to organize your care notebook that is unique to you. We all have different systems and styles of organization. So you're going to pick which one would benefit you the best. There's no right or wrong way to do a care notebook. These are just suggestions on what we recommend. So the first thing we're going to go into is talking about the care notebook tabs. And when you make a care notebook, you want to think about the ways that you're going to organize it. These are just some suggestions that we make about the different tabs on a care notebook. But again, these are suggestions. I'm going to start off before I dive into the tabs to make. What I recommend is if you are in the beginning stages, it can be very overwhelming to put together a care notebook. You might have all of your documents. You might have documents in a drawer. You might have them in a file cabinet. You might have them in a couple file cabinets, right? So what we do is we suggest that I always have families do cereal boxes, and then that way you can just, everybody has some cereal boxes, empty it out. And then when you're going through all of your information, let's say that you have a lot of papers on evaluations. I'm going to stick those in one of the boxes, and I'm going to label it on the outside of that cereal box evaluation. Then I'm going to go to the next one. And let's say you find all of your insurance papers. Then you're going to stuff all those insurance papers into that next cereal box. And maybe you can label it insurance information. Then you maybe do one with evaluations. You do one with IEPs. Maybe you have a lot of lab work that you're trying to figure out. You can put all of those different pages into that lab. So, what I recommend is when you are trying to figure out what ones, I I strongly encourage you to gather all of your documents first before you think of the tabs to see what ways would be best to organize that information for your care notebook by putting in all of your evaluations into one cereal box and then your providers and then all of that. It's kind of just the beginning stages of figuring out how to get it all organized because it again can be really overwhelming. But I want you to think about this. Once you do a care notebook, you're done. All you have to do is update it and add information to it. So it is hard to get started, but once you do it, you're done and you can continue adding, and it's much simpler. So those tabs, right, can be different, but by already filing away and trying to figure out, maybe you need, if you have a lot of evaluations for your child, then I strongly say, okay, maybe you do psychological evaluations, school evaluations. You can even kind of get those tabs into more specific categories. You can buy dividers, obviously, at Walmart, at the dollar store, or another way. Sometimes I have in my care notebook, I have the dividers, right, that say evaluations, but then I use like different color post-it notes that have little that different, those small mini ones. And I put them on each one that says, okay, this is a school psychology. This is a post-graduation evaluation. So you can even get them more specific to what you're wanting. Some of the documents that we have, and again, I want to stress that you can get all of these documents on oklahomafamilynetwork.org. Go to our resources and training, click on, go scroll down, and you'll find our care notebook training, and you'll scroll over and you can download all of these documents. These are for you and your families to download and use. If for some reason you have trouble finding them, we have them all on a zip file that I can easily email. Just contact oklahomafamilynetwork.org, call our 1-800 number, we'll get those to you. If you don't have a printer, we'd be happy to mail these documents to you or the families that you serve. So again, oklahomafamilynetwork.org, go to resources and trainings. You click on care notebook training. We also have these available in Spanish, which is great. But you can then click on the documents that you feel are appropriate. There are so many documents that we have, and not all of them are going to pertain to your situation that you have with your family. So here is a broad overview. We have the allergy, appointment logs, which we'll talk about, behaviors, communication logs, cover page, daily medication tracking. Some other ones we have diet tracking, emergency plan, equipment and supplies. If your child has a feeding tube or a PICC line, that is really important. Growth tracker, right? If you're talking about like failure to thrive, you really want to keep track of how your child is growing. We're going to talk about how my day went. And of course, in case of emergencies is always a big one. So again, all of those that you can kind of use. We have the lab work procedures, pharmacy information, phone call log, portable medical summary, which we'll talk about. That's probably the most important piece in the care notebook. Along with, I think, the tips to care for me is a really good one as well. So those are just some of the many documents that we do have available for our care notebooks. Right now, we're going to go over a couple of the ones that I feel like are most important. The first one is, of course, the cover sheet. I'm going to tell you kind of just a little story about how I used my care notebook. On my care notebook, I would always take it to my daughter's IEP. Yes, you would like to, in an ideal world, the child would be at their IEP meeting and advocating for themselves. I strongly agree with that. However, in our situation, my daughter did not like hearing us talk about her. We were talking about some serious issues medically that I didn't want her to be, didn't want her to have to listen to. So she wasn't present at our IEP meeting. I put this cute picture of her. I put a picture of our family. I put a picture of her doing her little cheerleading, her soccer, and I put that on the cover sheet. And that was what was on the cover of my binder. So when I would go to an IEP meeting or I would go to a meeting about her, I would have this adorable, cute little picture. Her name's Taylor. So that way, whenever the situation I felt like maybe started getting to more of she was a number, right? Rather than an individual, I could point to that picture on that page of that care notebook. And it kind of made us, I feel like, all centered back to we're talking about an individual. We are talking about my daughter and the success for her school. It's not just this random person, number 425, right? Case number. So again, that's why I really think that cover is so important. Another important way is that and I know we all have our phones now, so things are a little different. However, a lot of times you don't get service in the hospital, right? I've been in hospitals and I get no service. So, one of the things we recommend is having that picture on there that is a cute, healthy picture of your child. Because when you go to the ER, they don't know what the normal look of your child is. My daughter has Down syndrome, and a lot of kids maybe have a little paler skin. Well, she actually has pretty rosy cheeks. So when she gets really pale or has dark circles under her eyes, that means that she is not feeling good. And I know that as a parent, but they don't know that as a provider. They haven't seen her on a regular basis. This is at an ER. So by having that picture of her healthy, I can say this is an example of how she was at that healthy state. So they can really see the difference. So again, that's one reason why we really recommend putting a current picture that shows their personality and how they are during a healthy state. The next one we're going to go over is appointment logs. I cannot stress enough how important this appointment log is. I know I am so many times I write down appointments on back of receipts, on the back of my like just a random piece of paper I can find because the doctor calls while you're traveling or you're in the car and they that's the only time you can get to hear the doctor. So you make an appointment, you think you're going to remember, but as we all know, you get home and things happen and it's hard to remember. So I one thing I do just personally is I you can put keep extra appointment log, like just make a couple copies and put them in your car. So that way, if there is one, you can write it down. I actually have a little binder that I keep in my car of when I get phone calls of whether it be a doctor that I can pull over on the side of the road and write down notes or someone, I keep it in like a little binder that I have in my car, just a little cheap little one that I got at the dollar store, little spiral notebook. And then I can transfer those to my appointment log in my care notebook. But again, a lot of people just make a couple copies of these appointment logs and keep those in a folder in their car. You can just keep it right in between the seat and the middle aisle. And then just that way you always have it. The reason why this appointment log is so important is let's say that you're at your let's say your medical provider and they say, what's the last time you've been to the dentist? When's the last time that you saw your therapist? When's the last time the child went to their nutritionist or had a check in with their counselor? You're going to have all those appointments on there. One thing that when I've been doing these care notebooks, someone shared with me that I want to share with you today because I think it is such a great way is they used highlighters and at the top they had like a key and they would put like the uh, pink equals dental, blue highlighter equaled, and they would put like psychologist. They went to the child went to the cardiologist, so they put yellow highlighter. So they made it key at the top. And then when they had their appointment log, they would go through, and any appointments that had to do with the cardiologist would correspond to that color of highlighter, right? That was used for cardiology. Then they would have one for psychologists, and they would have one for psychiatrists. So that way, whenever they did go to their medical provider, they would look at this appointment log and they could easily say, "Oh, I went to my cardiologist these last 2 dates because it was already highlighted." Again, just a little tool that can really help organize the way that you use that appointment log and can really be a fast reference to when you had those last appointments. The behavior log. I can get into behavior. I love behavior. That is, I'm very passionate on how if you would know that every behavior is a form of communication, whether we realize it or not. Again, every behavior is a form of communication. My daughter is nonverbal most of the time, I should say, and so I know that if she's sighing or if she's very fidgety, right, that's a sign that she's very anxious. Okay, maybe I need to get her fidget spinner. Let's say that she knocks off her cup or she spills. A lot of times it's because she's trying to grab her cup and she doesn't have a straw or whatnot. So those behaviors, they mean something and they're trying to tell you how they feel by using their behaviors. They're trying to communicate. Sometimes I remember when my daughter had very challenging behaviors in the school system, and I would say, I just can't figure out why she's acting up during this time. Well, I thought, I've tried these things. Well, I decided to try it again, and I would document what time of day it was, what happened, and what happened before and after the event. One thing we noticed, they were always happening in the morning. They were always happening around that mid morning mark. Well, I mentioned this to her doctor, and she said, "You know what? Let's start doing her blood sugar." We started taking her blood sugar routinely and realized that she was having blood sugar issues. Her blood sugar was dipping really low about 2.5 hours after she ate. So I started sending like she's gluten-free, some gluten-free pretzels with her. And so when we started noticing that she would become more fidgety, her para at the time would let her go to a small spot and she would be able to have a little snack. we noticed that that is one of the issues. She was becoming very sluggish and she was just getting antsy. And a lot of times, kids, especially that are nonverbal, when they're starting to feel funny and are trying to figure stuff out, it's hard for them to communicate. They can't communicate that. So their behaviors are trying to figure out that, like, I need a little pick me up, right? And so those pretzels really helped. Another time that we started doing this behavior log, we were writing down the time. We noticed that she would always pull someone's hair in the afternoon, and it was always around 3. We figured out what was happening at that time. It was math. She did not like math, did not like to do math. So what would happen? She would pull someone's hair right before math happened, because then what happened? The parent would take her out of the room. She would get in trouble, but she didn't have to do math. So again, you don't realize that, but that was happening, right? 'Cause you're just thinking, "Ah, what is always something about?" So at first we thought it was just the time of day, and we kind of went back to, okay, maybe it was blood sugar, but we realized it was the event that was happening. It was math. She knew that by pulling that hair, she would be taken out of the classroom. So this behavior log can really be helpful, kind of when you're trying to figure out the reason behind some of the behaviors that your child's experiencing. This child's development history. I know that this is a pain to fill out, but once you fill it out, take a picture, and you have it. You don't have to go looking through notes. You don't have to go looking through everything, because I will tell you, my daughter's 22 now. We still, when we see a new therapist, they will ask me when she started walking. They will ask me when she started talking. So you still, I will tell you, for all the um, caregivers that have younger children, you're asked this a lot. So go ahead, fill it out, take a picture of it, keep it in that care notebook. And this is one you don't have to update, which is really good and easy. So this daily medication tracking page, this is one that can be used really well to encourage young ones and young adults to take care of their own medication, learning how to advocate for themselves and to taking control of some of the things to help you out as a caregiver with their medication. It doesn't happen with everybody, right? Sometimes that's not appropriate for that age or maybe that child. But if you can look at this and have that child know, this is kind of like a visual schedule. So if your child doesn't like to take medicine, right? Like what most children don't. Well, you could look at this and be like, okay, I know we took it at 12, so you mark that off, but I'm just letting you know we're going to set a timer, right? You can always use those visual timers that have the red going down, or you can use a clock or a microwave timer, or set a timer on your iPhone. But they know you can say, oh, okay, at 9 o'clock, that's going to be our next time to take medicine. So this can even be being used as as kind of a visual schedule. But this can also be very, very important when you're talking to your medical providers about, okay, this is when we've been taking that medicine. And again, letting even your child that's very young can help even mark an X and really kind of take control of their it's in a way to empower those even young kids. You might not have as many problems getting them to take their medicine if you allow them to take control of a little bit, even by putting an X or making a check. This one, getting to know me. We also do one page profiles that I'm not going to get into today, but if you Google one page profile, oh my goodness, you will come up with so many amazing ideas. And we really encourage you to make a one page profile for your child and put it at the front of the care notebook. But that is something that we kind of encourage. So if you Google one page profiles, you'll see a lot of examples. But this is a simple way, and you can do this at any age. Again, do this for young, you fill it out. You can have older kids help you fill it out. That's very, very helpful. Again, on this getting to know me page, it says a little bit about me. You could say, hey, they have an amazing personality, they make people laugh. Just a little bit about what they are. I love my strengths, things that are easy for me. I love to put my daughter, she loves to make people smile. She has a very caring heart, right? She gets very upset when other people are upset or crying. And, she likes to jump on the trampoline. Those are some of those strengths. My challenges. If you notice, we say my challenges, we don't say weakness, but something even better that I like is what we're working on. And because again, we all have challenges, but they're things that we're working on. That doesn't, challenges isn't a negative. Again, don't use the word weakness because that's just kind of puts a tone. But challenges are what you're working on. You can say working on using the communication device to get behavior information across, maybe writing our name, right? And then if they already know how to writing their name legibly in between certain lines, maybe learning how to skip, maybe learning how to walk, whatever that is. My life in the community. This is where you put whether they play sports, do they go to school, do they go to vacation Bible school, what church do they go to, do they have a best friend, do they like to go to the library, just things that they like to do in the community. Again, this is a snapshot of your child. And whenever we were talking about the different tabs, I will tell you that I'm kind of going to go back to that. I always put like an evaluation, I put medical, I put IEPs, but I have an entire section that is all about information about Taylor, right? My daughter, information about me. And that's where I would put this getting to know me page because, again, these are just things that I make copies and I give it to a new therapist. You can give it to a new doctor. You can every year you give it to a teacher along with maybe a one-page profile. But getting to know me, again, make copies of this, fill it out. I recommend updating it on their birthday. That's something that I've always done just as a reminder every year on her birthday, around her birthday time. I'm going to update the care notebook, or especially this getting to know me. Uh, Updating care notebook every 6 months is what I recommend because medications change, things like that. Again, you don't have to update every page, but you could update some of the ones that do change. This home visitor log, this was very important during COVID, especially, right? We wanted to know who was in our home. But again, this is something where, let's say you can't remember when your last Sooner Start person came or your DDSD waiver, right? There's always people coming kind of in and out of the home sometimes, especially when the kids are younger, but even as they age. But this maybe if someone says, when was the last time they were here? Again, you could keep that in your appointment log, but keeping a home visitor log of when they were in your home is kind of even more relevant because then you might not have as many as you do have appointments that you're going to healthcare providers, right? We hopefully this is one of those go ahead, write them all. And a lot of times you think, oh, I don't need to know what my providers were 2 years ago. Well, I'll tell you, you do. But once you fill this out, you have it, and you don't have to fill it out again. You just have to update it every so often of new providers. But I will tell you, when we go to a new counselor, they're going to ask me what past counselors I went to. If you're going to, especially when you're transitioning into adulthood, they're going to ask you what your providers were in the past. So having all that information in one spot is so helpful, and it saves a lot of time and anxiety trying to find that. This is another little sheet that's very helpful. You can adapt it to what age the child is. My mood today, today I went, today I ate. One thing a lot of people say, but why is this important? Well, especially if you have a child that is nonverbal and they're not able to tell you maybe about breakfast. This is a little story. As I was always, when my daughter was younger, I would put yogurt in her lunch, right? Because she sometimes ate it at home. And I thought, hey, that's easy, right? That's something I can put in there. So every day she would come home, her lunchbox was empty. The yogurt wasn't in there. Her bag of chips wasn't in there. Her thermos that she had was empty. I thought she was eating her lunch, but she always came home hungry. I did not know till the end of the year when we had our IEP review, her teacher did say, she does not like yogurt. We just throw that away. She won't even open it at the beginning of the day. I had no idea. saved me a lot of money because I would have bought yogurt. And I felt bad because no wonder she was hungry. I thought she was getting that yogurt, but I had no idea. So, again, if you have something simple like this where they can write that down, I would have been able to make those changes rather than going through an entire school year sending yogurt when she did not like it. Another thing is when you have issues with toileting, and not just saying that if they have a pull up or need to be changed, but for example, my daughter has extreme constipation and she's on different laxative medicines to make her go. So I would ask her para, if she went to the bathroom and she knew she had a bowel movement. Now, granted, they're not always going to know, but if she knew she would have a bowel movement, I wanted her to write that. And I know it says, hard and soft, which sounds a little personal, but that information is very important when you have a child that has a lot of medical and GI issues. They need to know that information. So again, this is just something you can tailor it to what age of your child and what you need to know, but this can be very, very helpful. Okay, this is probably the most important piece of the care notebook, and this is the portable medical summary. I would make several copies of this. I would keep one in my glove box. I would give one to every babysitter, your caregivers, give one to your neighbor, just in case of emergencies. God forbid anything happened to you. This is the spot that they would have all the information, and they would be able to give this to, like if let's say an ambulance came to your home and let's say there was a fire and you were hurt and your child was hurt and your child needed medical attention, that neighbor would then give this to the first responder and have their allergies, where they're supposed to go, their doctor's name. We always think that we're always going to be there to do that, but you never know of circumstances. So give this to people, your caregivers, but also keep one and keep it, every 6 months. I recommend doing this. This can also, if you write on here, one of our staff, your doctor can sign on here. And I know there's a story about one of our staff that's child always got strep throat, but they didn't necessarily have the signs that maybe would be the typical diagnosis. Like there wasn't a red throat, but he would start feeling bad. And then the next day, he would get really sick. So the doctor would put on there, if he starts exhibiting these symptoms and saying that this hurts, go ahead and prescribe an antibiotic. So that way you can even use that. So that way maybe the ER doctor or whoever they're going to knows what to do. Sorry, I skipped ahead just a touch. This is the tips to care for me. Again, in your care notebook, you can have an entire section that is just personal information or how to care for me. And I would put this one in here. This, again, is just little tips that you can make about. I love when I am upset, you can help me by. I always laugh. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to give kids stickers and that's going to help them. My daughter could care less about stickers. It actually, I think, makes her do the opposite because she doesn't want stickers, right? So maybe, but if I said, a high five or giving me 5 minutes of free time can really motivate me. So that's kind of some of the things you would put on this tips to care for me. Some of the resources, whenever we talk about resources, having all of your case managers, your social workers, DRS, which is Department of Rehabilitation Services for Young Adults, child care providers, other service resources that you get. Once you have all that information in your care notebook, then you don't have to look for it anymore. So put a tab on there that says resources and make copies and just of all of their cards. A lot of times you can get those business card holders and just start collecting business cards from all the offices and all of your social workers, and then put those inside of your care notebook. In one of those, they have literally, if you look, it says business card, like plastic holders. You can put all of those cards inside of there so you can have that about information. Evaluations. You're going to have a lot of evaluations. And when you have your tab, again, kind of like I said earlier, you can even make them more specific, like school evaluations, medical evaluations, however you want to categorize those that works for your family. IEPs. I always have the 3 year rule. I always keep 3 years in that my care notebook because I want the year, like I have the current year, and then 2 years behind. And what so I will tell you, I have several care notebooks. So what I do is I took out information that no longer was relevant at that time, and I don't get rid of it because you will have it one day, so you always want to have it. But I took that out and I have a care notebook 1, 2, and 3. And so I would take that information and I would literally I would put that and categorize it into a previous care notebook like IEPs. I have a folder for all of her IEPs, and I just put 2013 to 2014, but I also put the grade that she was in because sometimes it's really hard to be like, okay, what year I want in fifth grade, which year was that? So I always just label them like the year because that's important, but then what grade they were in. But always keep at least 3 IEPs currently because when you're at your IEP meeting, you can say, you know what, back 2 years ago, we had this, we were working on these goals because some of them might be the same from year to year. Your insurance and your guardianship papers. As you know, if once you turn 18, you have to get guardianship of your child with a disability, and you have to show those papers. I keep one in my glove box, keep one in your care notebook. Make several copies. If you if your child needs to have surgery and you do not have those guardianship papers, they won't let you have surgery over the age of 18 if you don't have and show them those guardianship papers. Another time is trying, for example, last night actually, I had my daughter again is 22. We went to see a specialist, and they wanted me to log into a patient portal at their hospital. And in order, because once you put your birth, it says, that I had to upload my guardianship papers just to be able to access her patient portal. So they are used a lot. So again, you can have that tab with that guardianship papers on there. Some of the extra sheets that we went over, the how my day went, instructions for keeping me. Again, I use those all. I have one tab that says personal information or how to, Taylor's personal care. You can make that as one of the tabs in your care notebook. One of the things do not get discouraged. I know it can be very overwhelming to make one of these care notebooks at the beginning because you might have all your papers everywhere, but try to think, and you don't have to use a cereal box. We just recommend that because it's easy just to stick all those papers in because it can kind of be a way to show you how to divide your care notebook. And then you can label those cereal boxes and then turn those into the tabs for your care notebook. And again, kind of think maybe set an alarm every 6 months. Another way, my daughter just went to the dentist this morning. If you could say, every time she goes to the dentist, because you usually go every 6 months, I'm going to update my care notebook. And then I'm going to really make sure I have it all together and update her all the how you can take care of me on her birthday. And just kind of mentally have notes and days and dates that you're going to update that. And then again, it's okay to have a care notebook 1, 2, and 3, but a lot of that information you're going to carry from one notebook to another. If you have any questions or if you need information, here's our contact information, oklahomafamilynetwork.org, resources and training, go to Care Notebook. We also have a transition care notebook that is for families that children that are transitioning into adulthood, which can be very helpful. And we have this in Spanish as well. If you have any questions, please make sure you contact the Oklahoma Family Network. And again, if you have any questions, we'd love to help, and we look forward to helping your family. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.